All right, there we go. So like Keith said, I'm going to walk us over the CERF overview. I don't know how many folks have been paying close attention to the Community Economic Resilience Fund, but it is a big undertaking that's going across the state. We'll spend about 5 minutes doing that. Then we'll talk about what the Bay Area High Road Transition Collaborative is. And then we'll get into what the sub-regional table is going to do. So the short of what CERF is, it is a $600 million fund to build a sustainable and equitable economy across California, with focus on supporting new strategies to diversify local economies and develop industries that create high quality, broadly accessible jobs for all Californians in the transition to a carbon neutral economy. So a lot of this came from the need to promote a sustainable and equitable recovery from the economic distress of COVID-19. The plan is to, and this was by supporting plans and strategies to diversify local economies and develop sustainable industries that create high quality and, again, broadly accessible jobs for Californians. I think we all know that in the communities that we work in, most of the jobs that are accessible don't pay enough, and the economy has been geared towards a mode that has been harmful to the planet. So CERF seeks to change that system. And there's four pillars found right here, which is to build an equitable and sustainable economy, working towards a carbon neutral economy, high road approach to economic development. That means investing in paying a living wage and having environmentally sustainable practices. And the third, which I think will resonate with everyone, is making sure that this is community and worker-centered inclusive economic planning. And the outcomes should be equitable for the region's diverse, divested communities. So how this is being divided is that across the state, there are 13 regions. For us, we are in the Bay Area region, which is composed of the 9 counties within the Bay Area region. This provides $5 million in planning grants to each region to support what is called a High Road Transition Collaborative and conducts a 2-year planning process. So, for example, in the Bay Area, All Home, who is here in the meeting today, is the convener for the Bay Area, and they're doing it with Bay Area Good Jobs Partnership for Equity as fiscal agents. And then at the conclusion of the planning process, projects engaged with or supported by the HRTC will compete for that state funding. Oh, did I click the wrong one? Okay, so what is the Bay Area High Road Transition Collaborative's purpose? The goal is to, in the planning phase, to re-envision regional economic development, planning centered around values of equity, high road, employment, sustainability, and climate resilience, shaped by workers and impacted community members themselves. That sounds like a lot. It sounds complicated, and it is, but we'll work on that. So the principles are to make sure that climate resilience is being led by frontline communities and workers. I think most of us here are familiar with the top-down approach that has been in place for the last couple of decades, if not the founding of the country. So we are looking to reimagine what a climate resilient and worker-led economy looks like. How do we do this? We do it by lifting up job quality. We grow high road jobs and elevate racial equity and worker voices. And in order to do that, we want to honor the local without losing the power of the region. So this means that the sub-regions and the collaborative are supposed to be inclusive, democratic, and with grassroots governance. All of this is aimed towards taking action towards transformational change. So here is a breakdown of the governance structure. At the top, you'll see that we have the Bay Area High Roads Transition Collaborative, or the BAHRTC, with All Home as the convener, with the Bay Area Good Jobs Partnership. Below that is the steering committee. So some of you are on the steering committee, and those are the ones that are directing the stakeholders. And this is composed of not just CBOs, but also, more importantly, labor, grassroots organizations, and some of the businesses in the region. Below that, we have a research and planning engagement committee. Although that is below, it is directed by the steering committee, and we have some of our partners from the UC Labor Center to talk a little bit more about that later. And then, of course, below that is where we are. The sub-regional tables are divided by geography. There are 6 tables, and we are in Alameda. So the purpose of the sub-region tables is that component of honoring the local without losing the regional. With the sub-region, we will identify projects or initiatives that can compete for some of the funding. At the same time, we also need to make sure that it has the capacity to have a regional impact, because we're doing this as a region. And I know this might be a little bit messy, but we can talk about that later. Now, if you haven't already been participating in the CERF meetings, what you can do is actually sign. Let me see if I can get this. You can sign the signatory form. I'll drop it in the chat. And anybody that's interested in the staying updated on the planning phase will start getting those emails. And it's important that we have as many diverse voices at the table, because everybody has a different perspective. Everybody has a different pulse on the community and can understand the different needs that are out there. So, you know, it is better to have a holistic view of the community rather than having a concentration of one type of field or organization than any other. But being a signatory also means that you agree to work in partnership with regional stakeholders to achieve the goals and vision of CERF within the Bay Area. So it is a team sport. Okay, so now we're going to go into the sub-regional table overview, just to give you an idea of what we as co-conveners are responsible for. And then we can talk a little bit about some of the needs that we'll have in partnership with all of you. So for the sub-regional table, our focus is to center grassroots leadership of workers and historically disinvested communities, so that we can shape the outcomes of the collaborative table. Again, going back to the diversity of voices and perspectives, almost everybody that we invited comes from different fields. It's not just the people that have been paying attention to CERF, but we have some research nonprofits, we have some violence interrupters nonprofits, and it's not just all labor and environmental folks.
And if I could jump in and you know, I just myself and Victor in sitting down to make sure that we do have a diverse group of folks at this table, but we're really going to need your help also, and you know, just reaching out to us, letting us know who's not in the room, like what for example, coming from education, I think it'll be good to have youth voice here present at this table. So we really want to make sure that we are centering grassroots leadership and having a diverse representation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that all helps to support the point of making sure that the direction that's coming to through the sub-regional table to the steering committee is all bottom up. And this will help inform what the steering committee will ask of the research committee, so that we can, so that we can be holistic about the work that we're doing, or even identifying the projects that we might not see from wherever we sit, right? Again, the final product or deliverable that we're looking to do with this engagement process is identifying, one, the regional projects or initiative, but more importantly, building this consensus and infrastructure, because it's not a one-time thing. CERF is about building the infrastructure for an equitable and community and worker-led economy. So I want to emphasize the point that this is not a one-time thing. It is rather the building that foundation. So again, here are some of the tables. If by any chance you feel that your organization might be suited for one of these other tables, maybe do 90% of your work in Contra Costa, we're happy to plug you in with the co-conveners in that area as well. Okay, so what are the objectives? What are we doing as a sub-region? We talked a little bit about the engagement, but it has to be equitable. So this means that we need to include members, not just of labor and community organizations, but especially those unaffiliated orgs that maybe are not official C3s, not official organizations, maybe they're community groups, or in not just formal institutions, but informal institutions. So that's why, as Keith said, making sure that you help us identify who's not at the table is going to be important, because there's no way that we can be equitable about that if there's those disinvested communities are not here. So when we're talking about the projects, the pilot initiatives, we're talking about identifying at least 1 to 3. And they are supposed to be local, but I think that the other part that is important is going to be having a regional impact. It has to be aligned with the Bay Area High Road Transition Collaborative's goals. And it's also going to be, they're going to be competitive grants that we're going to be applying for. So there's technically no guarantee that the money, as far as my understanding is, there's technically no guarantee we will get money for one of those projects. But I think that Alameda County is a very special and competitive place. So going back to that infrastructure, part of our objective is to create long-lasting regional economic development infrastructure that's going to empower communities and workers across the Bay Area to lead equitable high road climate economic development. So foundation, we're building the foundation here. So the folks that are in this room right now are part of the people who are leaders in the community and can help make this a reality. So the other part about identifying projects is that it's not just CERF money that's going to be available. We should also be working to identify other sources such as Inflation Reduction Act, IIJA, or Infrastructure Investment Job Act. There's also a bunch of EPA grants that focus on climate resilience, capacity building. So the question that we're going to be asking ourselves as we go through this engagement process is, what are some of those other fundings that we can leverage to support the project? So yes, there is CERF, but there's more than that. And by building a strong consensus and collaboration between us, we'll be even more competitive as that funding gets available. So this is, just to be transparent with everybody, here is the breakdown of what the structure is. For the sub-region, we have 2 co-conveners. So the Alameda County Central Labor Council is the Labor Council representative. Myself, under Greenbelt Alliance, we have been selected or nominated and approved as the community-based organization. And then we are also looking for, we have Workforce Development Board members who will be joining us. I haven't gone through the whole list, but there might be 1 or 2 in here already. And then, of course, we have HRTC steering committee members as well. And the most important ones are the stakeholders and community members. That's you. So together, we'll work collectively to make sure that we can identify those projects and build that foundation. For us, that means we're spending about 60 to 40 or 60 to 80 hours monthly or so to recruit organizational partners, but also to serve on providing you all updates and communications. We're still in the very early stages organizing this group and figuring out what people's capacity is. But as the project moves forward, we'll be a lot more hands-on in providing communication. We'll also help and manage some of any funds that are granted to the sub-region table. And as co-conveners, we will have a seat. Sorry,
You there, Victor?
yeah, can you? All right, sorry about that.
All right, and then we have, just on this slide, information about the support for funding that we have in the sub-regional tables to do this work. And then also there is an advisory component made up of Workforce Development Board representatives and the HRTC steering committee members.
Yeah, so that's just a brief overview. I'm sure if I got anything wrong, our friends at All Home can correct us. But right now we can open it up to any questions that might be out there. So feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you. Yeah, and I see Jen has let us know where some of the reps from the workforce boards.
Hi, Victor. I have a question. Would you mind if the Workforce Development Board reps could introduce themselves just so folks in the room know who the fiscal agents are for this project? And I'm from San Francisco, so I won't take up too much time on my introduction, but I'll pass it over to Rhonda.
Yeah, let's do that. And then I see Samantha has her hand up.
It's a good evening, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I was able to introduce myself briefly at our initial meeting. I'm Rhonda Boykin, the director for the Alameda County Workforce Development Board. And I don't know if anyone else, I think, who else? Is Carmelo here?
I am Rhonda. Hi, everybody. My name is Carmelo San, and I work with Rhonda at the Alameda County Workforce Development Board. And I'm just glad to see so many people in the room. So welcome, everybody.
Is that everybody from our workforce boards? If so, Samantha, I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thanks to you and Keith for the background. I was just wondering what role there is for community members who aren't affiliated with a particular like nonprofit or community-based organization to participate in the sub-regional table.
Yeah, I think that that is a great question. And I think that is going to depend on how we as a sub-region decide to organize ourselves. And that's actually what the second meeting is going to be about. So for the second meeting, we want to focus on developing community agreements between the members that are present and active, but also figuring out what a structure looks like for engagement, especially for those who do want to be more hands-on, because I think it is going to be a lot more work than maybe 2 people can handle.
Okay, great. I will stay tuned then. Thank you.
Awesome. I will make a mental note to follow up with you to help. Anyone else? If not, please take the survey. Help us figure out when is the best time to meet for the second meeting. There's a brief survey there on a Google form, and then we'll use that to send an invitation link to the next meeting.
I think there's another question from Alice in the chat of who decides where the respective budget funding goes to and how.
Hi, Alice. Is this specific to the CERF grant funding?
Hi, no, it was the budget for the, it just flashed by really quickly, looked like 150,000 to some co-convener and another 100,000 to another co-convener of our sub-regional tables. Maybe you could break that down.
Yeah, great question. So the co-conveners each get different budget allocations. So the labor partner gets 100,000, and then the nonprofit co-convener gets 150. And some of the things that money could be spent for are staff time, marketing materials for events, stipends for nonprofit partners. So a lot of that, I think, will depend on the need. And I think, at least from my side, it seems that a good portion of that money will pay for my staff time.
And I want to add also, and we really want to look at the survey, but moving forward, we want to have meetings that are in person or hybrid, so that we can really be able to work together collaboratively, and at the same time, and making sure that we have diverse representation. There may be needs for some folks around childcare, transportation needs. So that's just one of the examples as we move into this work and figuring out like how do we use our available resources to bring people together to do this important work.
That's great. Thanks for that, Keith. I was wondering, can you put that into perspective of, the original proposal, for the grant funding, I believe, for this CERF effort was 5 million. Can you break down where the other funding has gone to? Or what is yet unencumbered?
And no, that's a good question. And I believe that, is Laura here from All Homes?
Jen
Hi.
could also answer the question.
Oh, thank you. Go for it, Enrique.
No, I was saying Jen Hand would be able to answer that question.
Or Laura as the regional convener. So some of the funding is going to our regional convener for all the activities for coordinating the project across the region. And then additionally, we've set aside 2.5 million for any of the sub-regional activities and community engagement activities. So as you may be picking up on, Alice, some of the funds are not yet identified for outside of the 250,000 for each sub-regional table. So there's still funds available for activities related to the sub-regional table and planning. And then Enrique, our good friend at UC Berkeley, and his team are leading the research. So there's about 500,000 set aside for all of the research for this project. So that is already encumbered and accounted for. And then we have about 300,000 set aside for stipends for participants. But we don't have a plan yet on how we want to roll those out.
No, thank you, Jen.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Yeah, any other questions? If not, I think we can pass it to Enrique to do his presentation.
Thanks, Victor. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, let me stop sharing.
Can you all see that?
Yes.
Looks
Great.
good.
Great, thank you. Just because of time, I'm not going to spend too much time on any one slide, but I'll make sure that Keith and Victor have these slides and they can share them with the attendees. Just wanted to give you a brief overview of the research component of the CERF grant, which is the phase 1 called a regional summary. And just want to give you a flavor of what it is that we are required to do under the CERF grant and what the research is and what it is not, and how the community engagement piece could also serve to inform not just this research, but any gaps going forward. So the research we're doing is creating a baseline for the region. And so this is important because we're not creating any new data sets or any new research here. What we're supposed to do is look at the Bay Area post-COVID on a number of different type of studies and set up a baseline for the HRTC to understand where we are, and then look at that in contrast to where we want to be. And then this will inform phase 2, which is a strategic plan for the Bay Area to get us where we want to be. So that's how this is supposed to sort of work. And so the actual CERF grant outlines specific studies that we have to undertake. So these 5 studies are a stakeholder mapping, a regional summary, a labor market analysis, an industry cluster analysis, and a strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. So I'm going to briefly just tell you what each of those entails, and then I'll open up for any questions that you may have. So first off, the research has to address the objectives of CERF, which Victor and Keith already outlined a little bit in their presentation. So the objectives of equity, sustainability, job quality and access to those jobs, and economic competitiveness and resilience of the Bay Area. So the stakeholder mapping is a snapshot of those stakeholders historically active in the area who can influence the transition to a high road economy. And so obviously it's providing a list of organizations and entities. So all of you participating here in the sub-regional table for Alameda are part of the stakeholders in Alameda who can influence our transition to a high road economy, not just in Alameda, but in the Bay Area. What we want to do is we want to add a component of that to that, that's a power mapping. And so this is not specifically sort of required in the CERF grant, but we thought it would be helpful to also look at a power map of the area. So understanding who has the power over economic development decisions and who can really influence the process. So to that end, we are working with Dr. Chris Benner out of UC Santa Cruz, and Dr. Benner has been doing some of this work in Salinas along with Dr. Manuel Pastor of USC. And we've asked Chris and his colleague to help us add a power map component to the stakeholder mapping that we're doing for the Bay Area. The second study we have to do is called a regional summary. And this is a summary of background of the demographic and socioeconomic conditions in the Bay Area. And so within that regional summary, there's three components: an economy summary, a climate and environmental impact summary, and a public health analysis summary. And so we have partners who are helping us in some of these areas. For example, the UC Berkeley Law Center for Energy and the Environment is helping to conduct the climate and environmental impact piece. And then we're also partnered with Human Impact Partners, who's helping us do the public health analysis piece of the regional summary. Then we have a labor market analysis where we're looking at a snapshot of the workforce and the workforce dynamics in the Bay Area, looking at employers, occupations, wages, trends, and changes and forces in the labor market, and what are the opportunities for high road, the creation of high road jobs, as well as what are the barriers that are limiting access to those high road jobs. And then we're also looking at what existing training programs, apprenticeships, partnerships, high road training partnerships exist, so we can see where there might be gaps in creating this transition to high road jobs. We also have to do an industry cluster analysis, and here is a focus on industries, not just looking at which industries are growing, but also are these the right industries that should be growing for us to have this transition to a sustainable economy with good quality jobs. And then finally, a SWOT analysis looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the Bay Area. And this will draw from the previous 4 studies that I just mentioned. So like I said, our research team is the UC Berkeley Labor Center, along with Human Impact Partners, Center for Law, Energy, Environment. The Bay Area Council Economic Institute is conducted the industry cluster analysis, given they're tied to industry. And then, like I mentioned, Chris Benner is helping us with the stakeholder mapping, power mapping analysis. So there's a lot of research that we have to do, and it's a very, very short timeline. So we have to have all this work to the state by August 31st, which means we have to have really all the analysis done by the end of July. And I just want to make sure that we understand that this is not a UC Berkeley Labor Center report. This will be a report from the Bay Area HRTC submitted to the state in fulfillment of the CERF grant. So there's a lot of work that we have to do in a very short amount of time. So that means there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to integrate research and the community engagement components as we initially had visualized before we knew what the timelines were. So what the research team has been doing to try to create space for community engagement to influence this research is we've been having one-on-one meetings with every steering committee member to give them an opportunity to talk about the research and what they would like to see and what are some their concerns. And we're doing the same with every sub-regional table co-convener. And when we're having those conversations with those folks, we're asking them who else in their region, in their sub-region we should be talking about as well, who can help us inform the research. And obviously attending these kind of convenings like we're doing today. So, the hope is today I can get some feedback from you all also on some of the research work we're doing. Also, because like I mentioned, because of the timeline, we have to, most of what we're doing is utilizing existing data sources and existing research tools and analysis when possible. So a lot of time when we talk to folks, they would like to see research on a specific issue, but if the data is not readily available, we're probably not going to be able to do too much, just given the timeline of where we are with this project. I wanted to just give you briefly just a snapshot of some of the analysis we're doing. So I'm just going to show you 2 slides having to do with the labor market analysis. And these are not finalized, these are draft, but just so you can see, have a flavor of what we're doing. So this is looking at Alameda County for good quality jobs. And so we are defining an index of good job quality based on wages that allow self-sufficiency, with jobs that provide health insurance, full-time work during full-time year, so that, just to give you an idea. And so we're starting to look at some disparities in terms of job quality by occupation. The Bay Area Council is doing something similar in terms of industry. We're going to crosswalk those 2 to get a better picture of where the good quality jobs currently exist in each of the subregions and in the Bay Area as a whole. We're also looking at wage distributions by occupations and industry. And so you can see here that, jobs like healthcare support or personal care or retail tend to be very low on the wage distribution, whereas jobs like management and business operations and computer engineering, so forth, pay much higher wages. So again, just to get an idea of where the disparities are and where the gaps are. I don't want to take more time than I have, so I just want to give you a flavor for this. And then my email, I put my email here. I'll put it also on the chat, but I've also included the email of my colleague, Ida Farman. Dr. Farman is a researcher in my team at the Labor Center. And so when you get the slides, you'll have her email as well. And we're happy to answer any questions you have over email, and then also take any questions you have right now. So there's a lot of information very fast, but we'll share the slides with you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Enrique? No? Okay. If there's no more questions, I think we can start giving people back some of their time. Keith, is there anything that we're missing?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing the responses from the survey, and looking forward to getting back with everyone, and hope that everyone considers continuing to be a part of this process. And also we do want to get folks together, in person, so we can really take some deep dives. I see Patty and then Emiliano.
Yeah, hi, this is Patty Breslin from Sandlander 2050, and I have a question for Enrique, which is, I'm a little confused about the process around funding. I guess what I'm trying to say is, just as an example, healthcare services are a low-wage job, but there's no question that we need, personal care and healthcare providers. And is this a means for us to impact the raising the level of those jobs and making them more able to be, good wage jobs, or, have the things that they need to have?
Yeah, great question. So so like I mentioned, like what we're supposed to do is sort of set a level bar of where we are in all these different areas in the Bay Area today. And so that's right. If we identify an industry with a large share of low quality jobs and low wage jobs, then that informs the HRTC that there's an opportunity to think about a plan for addressing those disparities, right? So like I mentioned, the phase 2 of this is a strategic plan, or if you want to think about it like industrial policy plan for the Bay Area. And so if through the research, you can identify those industries that require a plan of action and projects to get those workers to have good quality jobs and to make the industry more sustainable, then that's something that can be undertaken by the HRTC in phase 2 of this.
Okay.
Does that help explain?
It does. I'm just, it's impacting that sort of thing seems like an interesting question.
Sorry, yeah, you were cutting off a little bit, but yeah, I mean, yes. So the idea is that the HRTC should come up with strategies to get the Bay Area to where we want to be. And so, in our report, we haven't finished writing the report, obviously, but in the report, we can talk about some policy solutions that have been maybe proposed about some of these things, but that's our job is not to, pick winners and losers in this and to offer a plan of action that's for the HRTC to figure out in phase 2. And let me just say that the Bay Area HRTC it has directed the Research and Community Engagement Subcommittee to start thinking about a proposal for how phase 2 is going to be implemented. And in like Keith and Victor mentioned, the sub-regional table co-conveners have a seat in that subcommittee. So through, one way you can think about your role in this sub-regional table is you can help inform how that phase 2 is going to be shaped.
No, thank you. Emiliano with a question.
Well, I'm a little perplexed in regards to the data that you put out there in regards to the wages. I'm sure Brother Keith and Victor know. I mean, the construction field is very high paying, and so I'm concerned. It's like, is this because in Alameda County we don't have access to the union jobs? What is it? Because I mean, I know that the wages in construction are way more than that of healthcare, but yet it looked like it was the same thing. So the data to me needs some explaining. Is like, is it because we don't have access to it, or is it because those that are doing the work at a lower pay are basically impacting what we consider to be, a livable wage? So because that in itself, looking at that, someone would say, well, I don't want to go into construction, it doesn't pay much. And so and we know that the union jobs is not the story. So again, that's just a little perplexing.
Yeah, so again, what I showed you was not a final analysis. It was just a snapshot of the data that we're looking at. And so that's just median wages according to the American Community Survey, which has the best data sample for county level, at the county level. And so it's a straight median wage. So we haven't analyzed, anything other than this, if you just rank occupations by a median wage, these are the higher median wage occupations. And so we didn't show you any analysis other than just the picture there. And so when we write the report, we'll include analysis of these things. I was trying to give you an idea of sort of the data that we're looking at, given the timeline that we have.
All right, thank you. I think the next question is from, is it Kama?
Kama, that was close. Hi, Keith. It's nice to see all of your faces. My name's Kama. I'm with Downtown Streets team. I wanted to ask a question with regard to, I think very early on in the presentation, there was, this reiteration of bringing people to the table in this process that have lived experience, essentially. And I know in many cases that may be people that are here today or people that represent people that are here today. And certainly my organization does. We work with people experiencing homelessness and people re-entering after incarceration in terms of trying to get them on a pathway to employment. What would you recommend in terms of the process by which some of us that represent those folks can actually bring them and their voices directly into this conversation without it being really overwhelming / confusing / unclear? Because quite frankly, all of this, there's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of players, there's a lot of people involved in this process. And I think even for myself, I find it sometimes hard to keep track of who the players are and what the acronyms are and how this is all playing out. So I just kind of wanted to get a sense of what's the plan for actually giving those folks the voice that we say we're going to give them here.
I could start, and I'm going to be transparent with you. Like we need to work on that collaboratively. And as Victor mentioned, in the next meeting, we're going to be focused on process. And then and what you have said is very true. And for me, coming from education, that's important to be able to present this information so that everyone can participate and share their expertise and their knowledge as far as to address the job crisis that we have and how to address just the changes with COVID, how it's affected the job market. So as far as not only being able to present the information so that it's accessible to many, it's also as far as when we bring more people to the table, I see there may be a need to offer translation services, as far as different modalities to have this information accessible. And if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear that. And I think that is one of our charges the next time that we meet. And I see, and I want to be respectful of names. Is it Carly?
Yes, yeah, it's Carly. I just wanted to highlight a question that I added in the chat and that I also think is pretty reflective of some of the comments we've heard today, of just some concerns about how with just using existing data sets, there's always a lot of like color and texture to some of these kinds of intersectional issues. And there are a lot of nonprofits and community organizations probably represented here on this call that are working within these industries to already make a lot of these positions and jobs high road or more sustainable or more equitable. So finding opportunities for the conveners and for the research team to really leverage the collective learning at this table is, I think, really helpful. So my question was pretty much just like, what is the structure for how the research team will be engaging with the sub-regional tables for all of these different kinds of summaries, and to elevate that last point, how we can do our best to bring community to those, to those structures to make sure that, all of these analyses are just well and comprehensively informed.
Thanks, Carly. Yeah, so the challenge is that, like I said, the timeline, and this is not a timeline that we put in place. This is timeline from the state, and so when we first started thinking about this back in September of last year, there was this idea that the community engagement piece would be parallel to the research piece. And so that there would be opportunity for the one to inform the other and vice versa. But then, once the contract was in place with the state, then we found out that the deadline was August 31st. And so we started working on the research portion in May, late April, early May, which only gave us 4 months. And like I said, the report has to be in by August 31st, which really you have 3 months to do the work. And so the sub-regional tables were not set up yet by the HRTC, and the community engagement was not, hasn't really started until, I would say that these kickoffs of their sub-regional tables is where the community engagement piece is starting in a way. And so there's very little opportunity for the community engagement piece to inform the research piece. And just to give you an example, if we wanted to do a survey of the subregions or focus groups, we would have to go through the university's IRB process because there would be human subjects. We're a university, so we'd have to go through that. That could take anywhere from a month or two, and that would blow the deadline away. So it's going to be very hard for us to do the surveys and focus groups and those kind of things, but that doesn't preclude you all from doing it. If you guys want to conduct focus groups or surveys at the sub-regional level and then share the data with us, we're happy to use it as long as it occurs in time for us to do the report. Otherwise, we can still use it to inform the work in phase 2 of the strategic plan portion of it. And so there's an opportunity there, but that's the challenge we have is these timelines. And so I don't know if Laura or others have thoughts on this. So we're happy to look at any data you have that could be helpful. But the UC Berkeley Labor Center, we would not be able to conduct surveys, focus groups, any kind of human subject type of research without going through our institutional review board at the university, and that would take too much time for the project.
Thank you, Enrique. Hi, also, this is Laura. I am with All Home. Something that I would also like to emphasize is that there will be a lot of opportunities for sub-regional tables to provide information and interact also with different groups. So if you remember, there was a slide that mentioned the research, planning, and community engagement committee. So that is a good place where research that you all do or insights or questions can definitely be shared in a group like that. We want to create space to ensure that sub-regional tables are like talking to each other, that there's, like a community of practice. So there's that opportunity. And also, like Enrique mentioned, Part 2 provides additional opportunities of engagement. So that Part 2 will include things around strategies for increasing economic equity, including pathways into quality jobs and family-sustaining careers, as well as additional things and strategies for increasing economic diversification and so on. So again, I just want to emphasize that there will be opportunities, and this is what we want, right? We want information and questions and research to be just to be elevated through various different channels, including the steering committee, so that it could help inform the work as we continue to move forward.
Thank you. All right, let me see if there are any other hands. I know that Jesus from OPR wanted to give a few words. Is Jesus here at this time?
Hi, Keith. Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to see you all here today. My name is Jesus Salazar. I'm a senior program analyst working under the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. I'm located in San Jose and grew up in San Jose, so I'm a Bay Area native. And when we started to write the program back in 2020, this is exactly the collaboration we wanted to see. So I'm just really excited to see it come to life. I also wanted to touch on a couple of really great points and questions that were raised this evening. Carly, your concern around data was spot on. It's really important who shapes the narrative of this data. And that's why I really do believe this first phase of Research Plan Part 1 is instrumental in the transformation of your region and your sub-region. So I think ensuring that there are opportunities for communities, CBOs to be able to participate in shaping the narrative of this of the data is going to be really important. And Enrique, yes, you could blame it on us, the tight timeline that we have. Unfortunately, this is what we're working with based on legislation. We are working to become a bit more flexible and see what we can work with. But in the time being, this is the deadlines that really anchor us in the work, unfortunately. But I, again, wanted to uplift the importance of this research phase. That's really going to inform the strategies and the priorities for the research phase plan part 2. I also, Victor, thank you so much for that great overview. Usually I'm the one providing that overview, so it's really great to see somebody else not only doing it, but doing it so well. And I think, again, I just want to drive 2 points home with what you had mentioned at the very beginning. And it's that, CERF, $600 million might sound a lot, but spread across the state, it's only a drop in the bucket, right? So I think being able to think and reframe as CERF being a catalyst to be able to leverage other funding to do the things you really want to do, that is the type of thinking that we want regions to be thinking about. How do we leverage this opportunity to position our sub-region or our region to continue to be competitive and attract other funding streams? This is an opportunity to create a roadmap, to create your priorities, to create your values, and to create that really much needed inclusive social infrastructure that's really going to drive home that transformation. So I just wanted to leave with those two main points. I'll drop my email in the chat. I am your northern representative for OPR, so I cover from the Central Valley all the way up to the North State. So I'm always happy to have chats. And again, because I am a Bay Area native, you guys all have a very special spot for me across my regions. Again, really excited to see the amazing work and collaboration. Thank you, Keith and Victor, for your leadership. I'm really excited to continue to partner with you all on this process.
No, thank you, Jesus.
I think with that, we can close. Sorry for going over. I've dropped in the chat the things that you can expect for us in the next email. We'll include a recap of the meeting, recording to this, link to the recording, the slides, the survey, the meeting survey link, and a draft agenda for the next meeting, which will focus on developing our sub-region structure, process, and community agreements. You have our emails. Please do not hesitate to follow up with your questions. I have some notes on some of the questions here. So thank you all for your time. We appreciate it, and we really look forward to working with you all on this project. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.